Vikes Now. I am Dustin Baker. I'm here with Tyler Ireland, our producer. It's just the two of us today, we think. We could have a surprise fan guest. We shall see. But we are here to talk about Vikings training camp. The regular season is precisely 40 days away. We are counting down. And we got a couple of items to talk about because, everything is in full effect. It feels like we've turned the corner from a really dreadful 3 weeks of July into a new youth, or just a fountain of optimism based on how some players have performed. So the first question, and Tyler, you came up with these, but I'm going to start by asking you have the Vikings done enough to address the secondary after Kyrie Jackson tragically died, Mekhi Blackman tragically tore his ACL, and then Shaquille Griffin tragically has a soft tissue injury that is basically week to week?
Yeah, as of right now, no, we have not done enough to adequately address the secondary. Yes, Duke Shelley was fun to watch in 2022, but he's more of a depth signing than anything. I don't expect him to be like the third cornerback on the depth chart. I know he was that for a Donatel defense, but he kind of fell off a cliff when he was with the Raiders, I think last year. And I don't think it's fair to expect him to play like a starting caliber corner when we just signed him off the street and he's got zero experience in the Flores defense, which is drastically different from Donatel's. And then the other corner we signed, Jacoby Francis, has never started in an NFL game. So needless to say, I don't think we've done enough to fully address the corner position. I know Brian Flores is really relying on a Caleb Evans, but me personally, I wouldn't want the Vikings to die on that hill if he doesn't play well. So do they sign a Stephon Gilmore, a Patrick Peterson, a JC Jackson? Remains to be seen, but I feel like they should.
And I think they'll soon realize that they don't need another injury to convince them. So I will say that I agree that right now, as it stands, I am not confident going into the season about the secondary, and that is for two reasons. This is a broken record stat on this show. They ranked 32nd last in the NFL in completion percentage allowed. That was the only bad part about the Vikings defense was when the ball went in the air, it was usually caught by the other guy, and that was just that. And there was no better example than the Chargers game week 3 last year, when those stupid passes to Keenan Allen, every single one of them was complete.
So and now he's in our division. So
yeah.
We get to play Keenan Allen twice a year.
Yeah, lovely. So from a baseline, whether it was free agency, the draft, just keeping guys alive and healthy, they needed to improve. So if those tragic incidents did not happen, I would feel relatively confident about the plan. But we cannot control an awful car accident, an ACL tear. So as it stands right now, these dudes they're signing don't do anything for me. Like, they're camp bodies to me. Jacoby Francis, I'm an NFL guy. I had never heard of him. Bobby McCain, I knew of a little bit just because he's played a lot, but he's just mid. And then Duke Shelley, while I believe in his DNA, he has a replica ready at his beck and call. You can't bank on that when he wasn't good enough for the Raiders last year, and he played 76 snaps for the Rams. So there's always a chance that his season was a one-hit wonder. So I'm right there with you that even before all of this bad shit started happening, none of us were going to be mad if, boom, our phone said Stephon Gilmore was signed. So now it feels like they really need it. Thankfully, all those options you mentioned, I'm glad you left out Xavier Howard because I don't think we want anything to do with that after you dig into the details. I didn't want to
bring it up, but there was a reason I deleted him.
I'm out on him, even if it's innocent till proven guilty. No, thanks for the smoke with that fire. There's Akello Witherspoon, Dory Jackson. There are depth guys that this team can use. So we're sitting here on the brink of the season hoping that Byron Murphy plays better, hoping that a Caleb Evans has a breakout season, hoping that Andrew Booth actually comes to fruition. All of these hopes, they usually don't translate to bona fide outcomes. So, yes, I believe that the Vikings need to do more to enhance the secondary, mainly because all of the bad shit has happened in the last 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, and Kevin O'Connell said, he's a very faith-based man, but he doesn't want faith to be a strategy. And that's sort of how we feel about Andrew Booth and Lewis Seam, even if you're just looking at the secondary as a whole. And it's so bad between the two of them right now that Duke Shelley was getting more first-team looks than Andrew Booth was. And Duke Shelley just got here a few days ago, and Booth is in year 3. And Bobby McCain is getting, more work with the second team than Lewis Cine is, who's not even practicing, and he's in year 3. And we don't know of any recent Lewis Cine injuries that would prevent him from practicing. So we're going to find out today at a presser what the deal with Lewis Cine is, because for the last couple of days, he has not been on the field.
Yeah, if we have time, I put that on my supplemental topic list. If we have time, we're going to get into that fully because it's a mystery. All right, the next one is a wonderful question. This show, particularly this guy, has pounded home all off season, especially the last 2 months, that Sam Darnold will be the QB1 in September because there is no reason that the Vikings will rush JJ McCarthy. It's a very Vikings thing to do, to slow roll McCarthy, even if it's week 3 that he starts. It feels like Sam Darnold throughout June and early July was the incumbent QB1. But, sir, is it premature to jump on the JJ McCarthy hype train? Yes or no?
For now, it's premature for now. He has looked significantly better in training camp than I thought he would look. I thought he was going to be a year away. He looks the part. I mean, he's been decisive. He's known when to take checkdowns, which not all rookie quarterbacks, they get in there. They're either indecisive or they're always hunting for like the big play. There were moments where the defense was winning, by all accounts, but JJ McCarthy was at least taking what was given to him and finding ways to scramble. And he was very efficient in red zone drills. He only had like 1 interception that I saw of over the past couple of days. So he's played really well, and I am genuinely happy for him that he is playing well. I'm happy for the fans that he's doing well. But we are entering the second day of padded practice, and there's still a lot more training camp to come. We haven't played a single preseason game yet. So slow down a little bit. We've seen a lot of great things from him, but I think it's too early to anoint JJ McCarthy as, quarterback 1 or someone who's seriously going to beat out Sam Darnold. Even though Sam Darnold has kind of struggled a little bit, he's had enough high moments to where it's not a complete bust for him. He's been throwing dots 40 yards down the field to Addison and Jefferson. So, we'll see if it actually turns into a competition, but you got to like what you see from McCarthy at the very least.
Yes, regarding McCarthy's long-term prognosis, yes, it's too early to say, hey, these first several showings, or that means we got a baller. It's way too early to say that because Sam Darnold did this in 2018. Like, he looked great. That's what he always does. But in terms of acing the assignment for the first week and couple days of training camp, it is not too early for me to jump on the JJ McCarthy hype train. It has me, starting to walk back the QB1 theory. And it's because I swear to God, there's something about just the way the quarterback carries himself, whether it's the way that he looks, whether it's the way he talks. And the guy is phenomenal at that, from a leadership standpoint. And then on the field, we could be talking about our guy, Drake May, if he was on these Vikings, and he very vividly, which we all knew, wasn't ready. He's raw. He's probably not going to play much for the Patriots. And the perk of drafting McCarthy, which took you a while to get on board with, was this guy can be a lot more game ready than any of these other guys, and especially Drake May. And the only reason I point out Drake May is because both of you and I were really high on him. So I would say from what he's been asked to do in the first 9 days of training camp, whether it's on the microphone, on the field, or being a leader or staying there the entire summer, no, it's not too early to jump on the hype train. I can't think of a bad thing that has happened with McCarthy since he's been drafted. I know there was fake smoke about is he going to hold out. He was never going to be a problem with that. No matter how long it took, he was going to be the Vikings quarterback of the future. So I was excited the night they drafted him, like everybody was. But on top of that, now he's starting to look like, God, did we finally get this right? Are we going to have our guy?
Yeah. And like to the Drake May point too, he has not looked good so far in Patriots camp. And that's not red alert. Drake May is a bust. They have a lot less resources at their disposal just from the coaching staff down. I'm not implying that the Patriots have bad coaches or anything, but there is quite a difference between former quarterback and Sean McVay disciple Kevin O'Connell versus defensive-minded coach, Gerard Mayo, and an offensive coordinator who served under Kevin Stefanski and wasn't calling the plays in Cleveland, who is now in New England in Alex Van Pelt. And just the talent on the Patriots roster is pretty barren on that offensive side of the ball.
Probably the most barren in the sport.
Yeah, probably the worst roster in the league, and that's not hyperbole. But I guess my point is, most rookies right now, even Caleb Williams has not looked the most refined in camp. So the fact that McCarthy, out of all of them, is like playing really well and yet has like the lowest chance to start is, to me, it's really interesting. But yeah, he's in a great situation and he's maximizing the opportunities he's gotten so far.
If we get 3, 4, 5 years down the road and it turns out either A, McCarthy wasn't any good, or B, he was totally mid, for the life of me, I won't understand it because he has all of the infrastructure, whether it's the coaches, Darisaw, Jefferson, hopefully Addison. You have all of that stuff there. So we have no qualms with the weaponry. And then the guy's desire to lead and his drive to win. It's not like we have an aloof bastard who's like, just moseying around, thinks the world belongs to him.
Jay Cutler.
Yeah. We don't have that Jay Cutler. Well, we would take a little bit of the Jay Cutler performance. He was really good at times, but it's everything about his personality is aces the test, and then the system is there. I swear, if we get to 2028, we're like, yeah, remember McCarthy? God, he was. I'm going to be like, all right, this curse shit we talk about is real because everything is pointing to this guy eventually being good. Probably won't be right away. But he's really impressive on the whole, so much so that I count my lucky stars that I wasn't in charge and gave up the 3 first-rounders for Drake May, because when you look at the draft capital piggy bank and you're like, oh, we got next year's first-rounder, seeing how McCarthy looks right now, sometimes I'm glad that it's McCarthy over May, even though it's way too premature to even determine that.
And did you see, I think you saw the JJ McCarthy quote? It almost had like a bit of Anthony Edwards in him. Because like he was saying, yeah, I feel like I've been in this offense for a year. It was something along those lines. And, that's really telling for a rookie quarterback to just come out with all that bravado and say, like, I feel like I've been in this offense for a year. Like, I'm extremely comfortable. A lot of them just kind of, go off the old quarterback script of I'm just trying to get better every day. And, kind of humdrum. There's no spectacle to it or anything. JJ McCarthy's just coming out here guns blazing. I think he wants to be the week 1 starter. And he's saying all this stuff and he's backing it up so far, but will he be the week 1 starter? I mean, I don't think so. JJ McCarthy could play like the second coming of Tom Brady, and they're still going to start Sam Darnold week 1 to no fault of his own, just because they're paying him $10 million on a fully guaranteed deal. I feel like they want to see that through, but maybe Darnold sucks so bad that you kind of have to start McCarthy week 1. Who knows?
Yeah, I think so. I'm right there with you. I still think Darnold will be the QB1 starter week 1 at the Giants, but I think there will be a significantly quicker hook than I envisioned. I talked on this show probably December for McCarthy. I'm willing to walk that back right now if they get out that murderous schedule out of the gate and they're 1-6 or some bullshit like that. Then I don't think it would be inhumane to put McCarthy in there. And on top of that, about the bravado you mentioned or the confidence, he doesn't ever come across as a blowhard. He perfectly threads the needle between being too confident and too timid. Like he's right. He's perfect at the microphone, which is about 15-20% of the job is sounding the part. All right. So Mr. Mankato, Mr. TCO, whatever we're calling it these days, I will say that Jalen Naylor has won the week. I don't know the specific criteria for Mr. Mankato because he's been on the team. We know him. So you can take the classification as you want to. Who's Mr. TCO or Mr. Mankato through a week and change of training camp?
This may be a bit premature because I've only seen him have, like 1 good practice. But Jaquelin Roy has flashed so far at camp. Between like all of the defensive tackles, obviously you have your Bullard, your Phillips, and Tillery and they're going to be like your 3 starters. But outside of that, Jaquelin Roy has looked the most impressive out of like the remaining defensive tackles. And that's where there's the most opportunity for, one of these guys to really solidify themselves as a consistent, rotational player on the defensive line. I think Roy is far enough in his development to where, we're seeing a more comfortable and confident version of him. And I think that'll translate into the preseason. And me personally, I just wouldn't be surprised if he earns a more consistent role in year 2. If he shows out in preseason and he shows out in training camp, there's opportunities there. So, would not shock me at all if he's Mr. TCO.
And for the life of me, because there are so many defensive tackles on the roster, with aside from Tillery, no clear-cut guy for the dude next to Harrison Phillips, there's got to be somebody out of like the 7, 8, Levi, Drake, Rodriguez, all those guys that beyond the shadow of a doubt creeps out and says, all right, this is the guy. So to your point, because he's organically drafted by the Vikings, I hope it is Jaquelin Roy, and I love that nomination. Mine is Will Reichard, because he's already ended a kicker battle that was never really a kicker battle to me the moment he was drafted as the first kicker off the board. You can stick a fork in that one. Parker Romo, hopefully he latches on somewhere and turns out to be good. But Reichard, I think we're going to end up loving this guy. If Vikings fans can get over, like even the best kicker, Justin Tucker, misses about 4 field goals per year. If we can get over like, a week 2 missed 45-yarder and not just, all of our kickers suck. If we can get over the normal misses, I think Reichard has it in him to be the guy that we've craved forever. Because the last kicker that you could absolutely depend on was Ryan Longwell. And then you had 3.5 really, really good seasons of Blair Walsh, but nobody will remember those now because of the undoing. So I say this all the time about Minnesota sports, and it's going to be applicable to Reichard. The Minnesota sports are absolutely due for a flurry of championships mathematically. I'm talking about just the odds, like the way the world works. One of these teams is going to win, and then the other one is, and there's going to be about 3 or 4 in a row in a 5-year period. That's how I feel about the kicker. We are due for a solid kicker. And Greg Joseph, bless his heart, was, after he missed that one against the Cardinals in 2021, the guy was money in the clutch. But we had this odd conundrum where he sucked at the other time. Like the regular stuff he wasn't very good at. So we just swallowed and we're like, all right, well, at least we got the guy to hit game winners. If he has to mix extra points, so be it. But I think Reichard can, I'm full of fluff today with all these good things. I think Reichard can do it all. So he's my Mr. Mankato, Mr. TCO. Hopefully somebody else emerges, which would be good news for everybody. The last thing I want to talk to you, twofold, sir. Let's do Adam Thielen and then the Lewis Cine mystery. On Adam Thielen, normally I am the voice, I think, of Vikings reason that when we clamor for reunions, I'm like, we don't need to sign every player who's left. And I would usually lead the charge, but the Adam Thielen one is really intriguing because unlike last year, the Panthers have 2 target hogs now in Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette or Leggetti, however you say that last name. So that immediately almost demotes Thielen to WR3, if not a target shy WR2. And if they were to cut him, it's not the wisest financial sense. But the way that I stand right now is if Adam Thielen becomes expendable via trade or via roster cut, the Vikings will pounce. So therefore, when I see these like Pioneer Press, Charlie Walters said, this makes a lot of sense for him to come back. Ben Gessling, Star Tribune, said on K-Fan, like, this makes sense for this guy to come back. I absolutely believe in the possibility of a Thielen reunion because the Vikings have a pronounced need on the wide receiver depth chart, especially if Jordan Addison is suspended. So I enjoy the idea on a depth chart perspective, not for reunion vibes. I think Thielen makes sense to come back to the Vikings. Now, sir, do you agree with that? And then do you believe he will actually depart the Panthers roster?
I don't agree with it.
Okay.
I'm about to end the fluff right here. We all love Adam Thielen. He's a Minnesota boy, soft spot, in our hearts for Adam Thielen. But the truth of the matter is Carolina's not going to want to trade him. Yes, okay. They have Deontay Johnson. Yes, they drafted Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette hasn't proven anything, so it's really just Deontay Johnson. And Thielen was still their most productive wide receiver last year. Why would they want to get rid of him, number one? Yeah, he's old and he's on a rebuilding team, but they have a young second-year quarterback who struggled in his rookie year. They're trying to usher in his development under a new offensive-minded head coach. Why would you get rid of his safety blanket on offense? Deontay Johnson's going to be the guy that they move around and, try and create matchups for. But on that 3rd and 10, the ball's going to Thielen, because Thielen's just one of those guys where wherever you need him to convert on 3rd and long, he's just going to be there. He's just such a quarterback-friendly wide receiver. That's not a guy you're going to want to get rid of. And then you have the financial part of it where it just doesn't even make financial sense to get rid of him. They don't save any money. They don't gain anything from it. So I don't think they're going to trade him. I don't think they're going to cut him. And then on the Vikings side of it, Jalen Nailor looks really good. And yeah, he hasn't stayed healthy. And there are still some concerns about depth at wide receiver 4 or 5. But I think wide receiver 3, that battle's coming to an end. I think Nailor's about to win it. I think they wanted him to win it last year. He just couldn't stay healthy. And now he's taking advice from Josh Metellus and he's doing yoga or whatever it is, Pilates, just to, be more flexible to prevent injury. I think this is Jalen Nailor's year. I debated Sean Kenner on this. I was on the Jalen Nailor train. And boy, has that hype train only escalated since the start of camp. So
on Saturday, Sean Kenner came on, and even he is coming back. He was like, all right, he loves to admit when he got it wrong, and, no sarcasm. And based on the first week of training camp, yes, Nailor has done the thing. And thanks for bringing us back to earth on Adam Thielen. Those perspectives really do make a lot of sense. And yeah, it's hard to see it when you have that much logic thrown at you, why the Panthers would offload him. And then let's face it, he'd be coming back to a team that's probably going to go 5-12 to a team that's 7-10. I guess the only other case would be this is probably Thielen's final season, maybe next year, and how poetic to make it here. So we'll keep. Yeah.
Remember too, Thielen left on not great terms. Like, it wasn't digs or anything like that, but it was like he had a fundamental disagreement on what his role should be in Kevin O'Connell's offense. He still thought like he was the guy, or maybe not the guy, but he thought that he wasn't. He felt like he was 25 again, is the best way to put it. And the Vikings kind of viewed him as an aging veteran that, slowly they want to give more reps to other guys. And that was before we drafted Jordan Addison, and he was kind of, on a down year, murmuring about his role, kind of complaining about it. You have his wife on Instagram or whatever it is, like whatever. But yeah, I think he loves Minnesota. It's not that it ended on bad terms, but I just don't know if he's going to come here and accept, okay, we have 2 to 3 guys ahead of you on the depth chart, and you're just here for vibes because you love Minnesota. I think he still wants to play. He still wants to prove that even in his early 30s that he's still like a 1,000-yard kind of wide receiver. So I just don't think it makes that much sense from his perspective, as much as he loves Minnesota. He's always a Minnesota boy. I mean, he's practicing with J.J. McCarthy when he doesn't need to. He's constantly complimenting the Vikings.
That's where all this stuff came from.
Yeah, that's where it all came from. And the love for Minnesota is still there. I just don't think it makes sense for the Panthers. I don't think it makes sense for Thielen. And I don't think it makes all that much sense for the Vikings anymore to have him on the roster.
And in his defense, he did a stellar job of proving that he could still be at least a WR2. He was the Panthers WR1. All right, the last thing I want from you real quick, sir. Why on earth is Lewis Seed? Like, this is like being at practice or being demoted. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard of training camp, a non-holdout situation where the guy just hanging out there in clothes like ours. So what is your conspiracy theory here?
If I can summon anyone to be on the show right now to ask this exact question, I'm paging Ben Lieber.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for this. Why is a third-year safety who has everything to prove and went out on the record to say this is like my biggest year, the injury is behind me, that's in the past. I want to prove that I can be an NFL caliber player. You say that in a press conference and then you're not even practicing. Like the Vikings aren't even letting you practice. So what's going on? Are they trying to ship you off to Philly with all the other Georgia defenders so we can get the corpse of James Bradbury? Well, what are we doing? Are we trying to get, Treylon Burks from the Titans? Is there a trade in the works? Are they trying to, see if they can even trade him, or if every other team in the league is like, nah, we're good. So I don't know if he's a trade candidate at this point, if they're going to cut him unceremoniously, or maybe he's just dinged up and we don't know about it. Could be simple as that. He's dinged up and we don't know about it, and they're just playing it safe, Lewis scene. But I just think the fact that even in OTAs and minicamp, when he was out there, you had guys with less experience on this team in terms of how long they've been on the team getting, second team snaps above him.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty grim. Like if Bobby McCain, who just got here 2 days ago, is suddenly more valuable to this team than your former first round draft pick who's entering year 3, that's a problem. So I don't know what the deal with Lewis Scene is. And I think we're going to find out later today. But hopefully we get some clarity on that.
The only thing that I have, and this is just speculation, is a theory, is that he had some sort of falling out or disagreement, and that prompted him to either request a trade, or they said, bitch, we're done with you. Like, just don't come on the field. That's the only thing I could think of. I've never heard of a guy who, I think we would have heard about the injury part. That's the thing that doesn't come back to me. And I know it's reckless to say, hey, the guy had a big, beef with Ryan Flores. I don't know what it is. It's just so strange that any player who's not in a holdout, who's not hurt, is just hanging out in regular clothes. All right, Tyler, I got to bounce. That's all we got for the Tuesday edition. I'll be back tomorrow talking to Josh Fry, who makes his triumphant return, and then a separate episode, Sal Spice will join on Wednesday. All right, man, you take care.
All right, later.
Later.